Hi everyone, my name is Simon. I'm the Workday UK Team Manager at Focus on WD, part of the Focus Cloud Group. I'm joined today by Sam Bullen, a veteran of the Workday ecosystem. So welcome, Sam, and please tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Simon. So I've been working within the Workday ecosystem now for 15 years. Started off as a consultant. I've done a little bit of contracting. I've worked as a sales executive for a Workday partner, and I've worked in-house for some Workday clients as well. My recent role being as an HRIS Director. So I've seen the Workday product from very different perspectives. I'm based in Brighton, travel regularly into London as and where necessary, and looking for my next role.
So Sam, with your varied experience, you've seen Workday coming into a lot of different companies and from different perspectives. So I guess one of the things that companies have to think about when they're bringing Workday into the business is where should it sit? And in most cases, it sits under either HR or IT. What's your thoughts on that and where Workday should be situated within a company?
So I think for me, a Workday team should be split into three main areas: functional, technical, and data, which you'd typically see in any Workday implementation. Each area attracts certain people with certain personalities, working practices, and ambitions. And whilst it makes sense for someone with an integrations background to maybe sit in IT, as those skills are more transferable within that department, it may not make sense for someone with a functional background who may have come through HR. In fact, the majority of Workday consultants I've met and worked with, certainly in the functional area, have come from an HR background. They're more likely to have ambitions within that department and understand and build relationships with HR people more easily. Data people can fall either side of the divide, as it would depend on what they like to use that data for. So is it to improve the systems across IT and HR landscapes, or is it to make strategic decisions and arguments within HR? So there's definitely a strong argument for part of that Workday team to be sat within HR.
Okay, that's really interesting, and you hear a lot of mixed opinions about that on the market. But I think you've explained it quite concisely, and it's about career path for the people within the business, isn't it?
Exactly.
So Sam, based on what you've said, you've now chosen the product, Workday's in the building, and you've actually gone through your implementation, and now it's live in the business, and now you're in the post implementation phase. What does a company need to think about? Because it's quite a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think there's three main areas. I really like working in threes, as you can tell. I think they would be over configuration, change management, and governance. What I've learned, certainly with bigger companies, is that an SI can often try and overcomplicate configuration in order to please everyone. But what this essentially leads to is that no one ends up getting pleased or exactly what they want. And once live, the end users can get stuck in processes that either take too long or create a bottleneck or just aren't meeting legal or regulatory requirements. Keeping configuration as simple as possible and making decisions that force the client to harmonize their working practices will usually lead to better results, I've found anyway. With change management, that can sometimes be really good within an implementation, during an implementation, and maybe just after, but quite often it then gets forgotten about quite quickly. People learn differently from each other, and they don't always have the time to read a quick reference guide or watch a video. So building tips and help text into your processes, whether that's using Workday's own tools or bolt-on systems like WalkMe, can help end users in real time. It's also really important to ensure all of HR are on board with the strategy and benefits of using a system like Workday, because at the end of the day, they're going to be your sort of frontline support, whether officially or unofficially. and their opinion of an HR system and their ability to help their managers will determine how end users feel about that system and utilize it. When it comes to governance, and I'm not sure why, but this does seem to get either forgotten about or not formalized enough during an implementation, I've found anyway. So ensuring you have a clear documented process for change controls and design decisions will help manage those conversations with auditors and guide your systems teams to follow correct procedures. If you can try and gauge how these things are going to fall as early on as you can in your whole process and your implementation, then that's going to minimize the amount of backlash that you might get from end users, auditors, and anyone else.
Sam, change management's in place, the governance in place, the products in the building. Now you need some people. So how do you go about building a team post-implementation?
So as I mentioned before, I'd set up a Workday team concentrating on those three areas, functional, integration, and data experts. It's important to have a good mix in-house resources and external AMS support through a Workday partner. And Workday themselves can actually give you an accurate ratio of internal resources that you need based on your company size, number of Workday modules, etc. What I found useful is to try and keep some resources from that initial implementation, because if all your contractors and consultants leave and your internal stakeholders go back to their original day job, it can be difficult to keep the knowledge of why certain decisions were made.
Okay. And how do you actually identify the skill sets from within an organization that you need for your Workday setup, both current and future?
I think firstly, you've got to look at what modules you've got, because each company can be very different in terms of what modules they've taken. So if you have internal people that are very clued up on those modules that you're utilizing, then obviously you're going to get a lot of value out of them. If, however, you want to swiftly move on to a phase 2 and you suddenly need someone with advanced compensation experience, then you may not have that in-house, and therefore you'd need to go and find that elsewhere. Having said that, in one of my roles, I brought in a change manager straight away. Kind of what we were saying earlier on, change management had kind of been dropped post go live before I moved into that role, and as HRIS director. And that person wasn't a seasoned change manager. It was someone who worked in HR, was part of the initial deployment, and therefore had some fantastic knowledge about what did and didn't go well, had just naturally good knowledge of HR, change management in general, and what works well within that culture. And so I had that resource in-house, and it made so much sense to bring that person into my team, and they did such a fantastic job in building that, building the relationships between my team and our end users.
I guess it's almost natural, isn't it? Because they've been through that side and they've kind of been on the journey with you. So they've probably also got an appreciation of kind of where you're going and the why and the how and the articulation of that to the other people in the business as well.
Exactly. And they don't necessarily need to know how to configure Workday. If you're going into this, if you're embarking on an advanced compensation rollout, but you've got someone in-house that has a lot of reward experience, then you can always utilize either a contractor or your AMS provider for specific advanced compensation configuration skills to then partner with your internal person and roll out that Workday module. So it's important to kind of understand the skills that you need. Is it actual configuration skills? Is it knowledge from the company side of what is needed and their requirements, or is it something completely different? It could be any one of those three. So yeah, it's important to find out what that is, but not pigeonhole certain people or look at sort of a cliched set of skills, as more often than not, one size won't fit all.
Okay, Sam. So you've looked inside the business for the right people. You wanted to upskill them. Unfortunately, you can't. So you partner with someone like us or your recruitment partner. Okay. What's the value of working closely with a recruitment partner for these niche Workday skills?
So I think by partnering with a company that knows Workday, knows HR systems, the people that work within them, you're going to get a lot more benefit a lot sooner, as and when you need it. So you're not going to take ages trying to recruit someone by going through an agency that just does general recruitment. You're not going to find it necessarily really quickly if you're just going to stick a job advert out there and hope that you get the right people that apply. People like yourselves, you know what you're doing. You've been doing it for years. You've already got numerous amounts of people on your books. And if you don't, you know where to find them. So that's that benefit that you're going to get as a hiring manager of efficiency. The speed in which you're going to get people in front of you to interview is going to help you fill that role a lot quicker than if you don't.
That's great, and obviously very, very true. But also, we have a responsibility as Workday recruiters to find you the right people. But there is a responsibility from the customer side as well, isn't there, to both their recruitment partner and the candidates that we're getting to you. So what's your responsibility in the recruitment process?
So I think as a hiring manager, the key responsibility is to be open and honest, and utilize that relationship as soon as you possibly can when you need it. The longer you go before having those initial conversations, the longer you take to decide exactly what it is you're looking for, then this is just going to build in lots and lots of time that you don't really want to happen before you actually get bums on seats, which is ultimately what you want. And by being open and honest, again, you're going to get the right people.
And obviously from our side, we've then taken a qualification on what you're looking for. We know the type of person you're looking for. We found out what their path is and things of that type. And we found that person. What do you have to ensure happens for that candidate to be happy with their choice?
So it's really important to make sure that the people that you're bringing in are happy and content, and that all of their needs in terms of their career and the way that they work are met. Because the thing is with the Workday ecosystem is it's incredibly easy to move around. The demand is still outstripping the supply, especially with those more niche roles. And so it's incredibly important that you make sure that you are investing in those people, showing them that they are important, that they've got a real a real value within that team, and making sure that what they can do is going to benefit your company on an ongoing basis. Because when you talk about in-house roles, the work isn't just come in, do a job, go away. It's always changing. Companies are always changing. Their strategy is changing. Their size and structure is changing. And so, you're always busy when you're an in-house HRIS specialist. There's always something. There's always someone that needs to come to you with a question or a query. And in many cases, it can be quite a thankless role as well. So, keeping those people happy, helping them to grow and develop, is what's going to keep them in that company, and therefore your attrition costs lower.
Okay, Sam, you made some really, really interesting points there, and it leads nicely onto a question that we as recruiters ask a lot, don't often get the answers that we want, but hopefully you'll be able to shed some light on this. So what are Workday skills worth to someone in your position? And as that person, how do you convince the wider business who don't know Workday, and Workday's a bit of a mystery to them, to invest correctly in finding those people?
So I think for me, investing in a system like Workday, it's not a short-term fix for everything. Companies change all the time, whether it's their structure or size or strategy, as we said earlier on. And having someone in-house who knows your system's capabilities, helps a company transition quicker and with fewer issues. And the relationships that I've seen between key stakeholders and internal systems teams can often be incredibly strong and valuable to a business. As a consultant or a contractor, I was used to peaks in workload, followed by the occasional trough, maybe. But when I've worked client side, it was only ever busy or very busy. Having people dedicated to your system in your company helps tackle issues quickly with the knowledge and skills set to ramp up as and when necessary. There's only so much a CPO or a CIO and their teams can know about Workday, and it will never be enough to answer every question that they may have on a regular basis. It also helps a company to be more proactive instead of reactive by having internal resources who are frequently using Workday Community, attending sessions like HR Tech or Workday Rising, for example. Those resources will be able to then use that knowledge that they're gaining and that growth that they're getting, to work with your key stakeholders to help build out roadmaps, manage biannual releases, and be ready for whatever might be around the corner.
Now, it's really interesting because, like you say, these people are the voice of the system, aren't they? And without that voice being able to articulate it to all the levels of the business, you then kind of have a problem. So I can understand why people like yourselves go out of their way to get the right level of investment to get the teams that you need. So no, that's a really, really great answer. So Sam, it was a while ago, but on LinkedIn, I put out a poll, which we had a good 500 people vote on. And it was a while back, but I asked the candidates in the Workday ecosystem, like, what's the most important thing for you when looking for a new job? And there were 4 options. There was money, there was skill progression, there was the interesting product roadmap or interesting program and investment in the product, and then there was company culture. What was quite interesting about the answers is they almost came out at roughly 23 to 25% each. So it's quite even across all 4 of those questions. So what that told us is that candidates are looking for the full package in the Workday ecosystem. They want to have good remuneration. They want the opportunity to progress in terms of their skill and their career. They do want the product roadmap to be something that's being bought into and have an interesting piece of work to work on. And they want a really good company culture. Now, for you in the hot seat as the manager of these people, how do you go about giving candidates in the Workday ecosystem all of those things? Because it must be quite tough.
It can be tough, but it's not impossible. Investing in a system, it's, as I said earlier on, it's an iterative process and not something you'll only do once. So part of that investment is the people who are ultimately going to help you get the most value out of that system. So you really want to make sure that you're trying to meet all of those 4 things as much as possible. As I said before, happy systems specialists will ultimately mean lower attrition costs in an ecosystem that is easy to move around in. From a money perspective, it's, I think, important to fairly pay your in-house resources. Especially, when you think about the option of permanent or contracting roles that they will have, your permanent members of staff are more likely to go that extra mile and not just invest in themselves and their team, but also in the company itself. So if you think about voluntary days, company initiatives, focus groups, etc., you're often expected as a permanent member of staff, to get involved in these kind of things. And it helps build the relationships needed to get the value from your system. It's a thankless task a lot of the time. So, it comes with a lot of responsibility. So those people should be fairly compensated for that. We've touched on before as well about personalities and different ambitions for functional consultants. Giving them the ability to learn as much about Workday as possible and to grow within the company will give these workers the loyalty that you need back, so that you're not constantly spending your time trying to replace them and company money. If you're investing in your systems correctly, there'll always be interesting work to be done. One day is rarely the same as the next in systems. And in terms of culture, that's going to be something that a worker should be aware of when joining a firm, if not on day one, then soon after. But regular check-ins with them will help them to blend in, make sure that they're coping well enough with the workload, with the company expectations, the different personalities, of the stakeholders that they need to deal with. So yeah, it's important to keep doing those regular check-ins as well.
Do you know what, Sam? I don't think I could have asked for a more thorough answer there. And do you know what? We know that you're a really strong leader in the Workday ecosystem, and to be able to articulate and recognise the importance of giving candidates all those things, but also knowing what you're going to get back for those things. It's something that people don't think about. A lot of the time they offer a lot of money, but the culture or the product roadmap maybe is not so good, and it won't be that full package, and you can only go so far with a person unless you're offering all of that. So do you know what? That's an absolutely fantastic answer. Thank you for that. So Sam, I know you're open to a new challenge at the moment, and in an ideal world, where do you think you can add the most value to an organization?
So it's been quite a whirlwind 15 years for me in the Workday ecosystem, having experienced HR systems from all the different viewpoints. I think I can add value to a company who is about to embark on a new HR system deployment, or maybe a company that's just deployed Workday and they need to start thinking about what's next. I've got that experience in the past through consulting where I'm very happy, and sometimes it's very enjoyable to be able to roll up my sleeves and get involved with some of the configuration every now and then whenever necessary. I know how to build teams and find those people from my ecosystem or from people like yourselves, to build those teams that are going to add value for a company. Having done a little bit of work on pre-sales and as a sales executive at a Workday partner, I can talk to Workday and their partners about price points, making sure that a company gets the right deal and the right day rate. And the strategic vision that I've often worked on within companies, means I can talk to CPOs and CIOs about their roadmap, where they want to go next, what's important to them and the company. So that gives me an all-round vision, I believe, to tackle whatever comes my way in that kind of role. So yeah, I'm really excited for my next challenge.
And I think, Sam, people listening to this will probably agree, whoever lands you will be really lucky to get you, mate.
Thank you.
Well, that's it from us today. Sam, really appreciate you joining us today, and all your insights into the ecosystem, much appreciated.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, it's been really, really enjoyable.
And I hope for those of you listening, you've enjoyed hearing what Sam's got to say. And if you do want to get in touch with us and ask any questions about the ecosystem, please do drop me a line. Or alternatively, if you want some advice and tips on how to hire a team, you want to hear it from not only us, but from people like Sam, drop me a line and we could book in a time to speak. So thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this. This is Simon from Focus on WD. Have a great day.